Hi everyone, I'm going to do a series of layouts today, and so I wanted to do at least a couple of process videos from the work I do today. The layouts that I'm going to be doing today are for Scrapbook Supplies Online.com, and I'm going to be using the My Little Yellow Bicycle Saturday collection. Okay, so here I am just choosing what papers and what tags I'm going to use, and I really like the look of those reds and blues together, so I'm just picking some random tags. I've got so much to choose from here that I'm just kind of picking out whatever I think works. I really like some of those chipboard pieces layered with one another. And I'm doing things in a little bit different order this time. I usually save my embellishments to pick out afterwards, but in this case I have picked them out before I did the paper. So now I'm just going back and picking some paper to go along with that. And here I am just cutting off a part of that shaped stitched paper, which is so yummy. Don't be afraid to cut those pieces up because you actually get more use out of them. And you know, I think you could spread that over 2 or 3 layouts if you cut it up. So now I'm just distressing the papers, and sorry, I'm out of frame to distress that one just because I had already cleaned up the mess. So I'm just trying to figure out photo placement and how I'm going to layer everything together. And so I'm liking how that looks. And I had cut a bunch of those zigzag pieces using my Sizzix die. I have a Sizzix zigzag die. That's a tongue twister for you. It's part of the Tasteful Trims die from Stampin' Up. And so now I'm just gluing my pictures on. You'll notice that I usually only glue the center part of my pictures, and that's so that I can stick stuff underneath afterwards. And then instead of doodling a border, I'm just going to stitch a white border. It's a very subtle look. And so there I am finishing that up. And I'm also just stitching back and forth and back and forth as a decorative element on the photos. Makes them look like they're sewn on, even though they were glued. I do try to keep the adhesive away from my sewing machine. I'm not all that careful about it. I will sometimes run my sewing machine right through adhesive, but you do want to be careful. If you've got a really high-end sewing machine, you don't want to gunk it up. So I'm just going back to figuring out my layers again and trying to decide what's going to go where and how I'm going to layer all these pieces on. At first I was going to stitch all those zigzag pieces across, but I ended up just gluing them down. It would have been a pretty tedious job to stitch every one of those. So, and I'm just trying to layer them in an interesting way with some spaces between them. And I'll cut off the edges at the end. So I'm using a piece of wax paper for using that little glue pen because the glue is very liquidy, and so it often comes off of the edges, and I don't want to goop up my work surface. And then I'm just stapling them on to make it look like they're all stapled on, but they're actually glued. And now I'm just going back and gluing down some of the edges that I didn't quite get stuck. I wasn't sure if I was going to go for like a peeling look where they were all going to curl up, but then I decided to stick them down. So I'm going to glue these elements all together, all these tags. Fussing a little bit with placement, and then once the tags are all connected together, then I'll just tuck them in behind my photos. And I'm just putting the date stamp on with some red ink. And that's just one of those dollar store date stamps. And now, because I do everything backwards, I'm going to do the misting part of my layout. So I just use a giant cake box that that was left over from a birthday party several years ago. I've been using this for a long time, and it really collects all of the mist and keeps the rest of my work surface clean. What I'm using there is a combination of plain old acrylic paint, and I just put a little bit of glimmer mist, just the pearl glimmer mist, so I'm not adding color, I'm just adding a bit of, mostly for liquid, not for the sparkliness of it. And I did that in 3 different colors, in my white and in my shopping bag and in my combination paint that I mixed. And so now I'm just putting down some chipboard elements and trying to figure out where all these little elements are going to go. I'm wanting to put something up in that corner to balance off the embellishments that were down in the corner. And what I put there was a little stamped piece of book paper that I had just sitting on my desk. And so I'm just gluing that down now and layering it behind a piece of cardstock sticker from the collection. I'm using glossy accents to glue down my chipboard elements on this layout. Sometimes I'll use the Tombow Mono Multi, and I use the two almost interchangeably. I'm not sure why I'm using one over the other today. So I'm just layering and layering, and here I'm kind of flirting with the idea of putting some flowers on here, some layered flowers, but I just can't. Flowers aren't really my forte. I struggle with flowers, but I'm going to do some cards later on with those flowers. So here I am doing my title. I do my titles on wax paper just so that I can decide the placement. I'm not very good with placing things in the right spot right off, so I'd rather kind of fiddle with it, and then you can kind of check out different placements as well. Like if I had done that in the other spot, I don't think I would have been happy with it. It didn't really occur to me to put the title down here until I had already placed everything out on the wax paper. So I think that's kind of works for me for my creative process. And then at the last minute, I decided to put "the" for the need for speed. That's a quote from an old movie. I forget what it's called, the one about fighter planes with Tom Cruise. And so now I'm just going to give you guys a bit of a close-up. And one thing that I didn't include at this point in the layout is the stick pins. I actually lost them on my desk surface, and so I later on went back and put some stick pins on this layout, so look for those in the pictures. Thanks for watching.